I just want to say I am so sorry for anything that I have caused, any damage, anything. I was like, I'm really sincerely sorry. And he's like, oh, it's cool, it's cool, it's cool, don't worry about it. He was like, come and get your phone, come and get your phone. So I went and go and got I came in the house to go and get my phone, and he stops me, he goes, you do know you were sucking a guy's you know what in front of the whole party, and there were children there. I was drunk as fuck. I did not remember that part. But I will say this. I remember there being an eight-year-old little girl there that was popping shots. Little 8-year-old girl taking fucking shots. And I mean like proper shots. I was like, what the fuck? But hey, if people are drinking when they're 8 years old and taking shots, like I was drunk. I don't know. I don't really have an excuse. I was just drunk as fuck. So yeah. Yeah, it was a fun party. And we got on after that. We had a really good summer. We was really close. Year 11 started. It was good. No problems up until. So we got on great up until Dee Dee. This is what I'm saying about Dee Dee. Dee Dee, like I said prior, just gave me a really like, I gotta keep my eye on you. You don't seem like a real friend at all. You seem very two-faced kind of vibe. Dee Dee started causing a lot of issues within our friendship group. So within the between me, Joe, not so much Quiet Girl, but she was involved in it every now and again. Alice and K-Bob. She was like, Dee Dee was causing issues between us all. Like, Dee Dee, we caught Dee Dee out a few times talking about us behind our backs and saying stuff and like just being fake. Like, and that was what I said to Dee Dee from the very start. I was like, I'm not quite sure about you. Like, I don't, you need to keep away from me. Like, I'm not sure about you. And basically, one day we're in the canteen, we're sat down, we're having lunch, and Dee Dee had gone around talking a bunch of mess about me, and she'd gone around talking a bunch of mess about Joe. So, Dee Dee comes and sits down. She was talking about me because I said that, like, my first impression, I told her to her face, like, you need to stay away from me. Like, I don't know about you. Like, you give me a very two-faced kind of vibe. Like, you're not like a real friend. And I told her that to her face. And I guess that's why she didn't like me, because I got the balls to tell you to your face. And she had a problem with Joe because Dee Dee come in one day to school with her makeup done. She did it herself. And I'm not being mean, I'm just being honest. Her makeup looked awful. It looked like she just packed a ton of bronzer on her face. And she had these big eyebrows and, you know, like just too much. And she was orange. Like she looked like an Oompa Loompa. And apparently Joe was like saying your makeup looks stupid. I don't know, like she was saying like Joe said her makeup looks stupid or something, or she needs to go and wash it, she needs to go fix it, something like that. But Dee Dee wasn't happy with the fact that Joe was talking about her makeup. So what Dee Dee did was Dee Dee went around you know how I was on about the Ripple friendship groups? Dee Dee went around and was starting to talk smack about Joe. And this was getting Joe really pissed off, and I was pissed off too because she was talking about me too. So Dee Dee sat around the table one day in the canteen, and she's like, imagine this is a fork and this is a plate. She's like head down like this, and I literally looked at her. I said, Dee Dee, do you have anything to say to me? Because I'm being told that you're going around talking greasy about me. Like, you talking about me behind my back, but you're not saying it to my face. And she like, I don't have anything to say. Like, I said what I said, but I'm sorry, I don't mean it like that now. And she was like doing this, like, this is her fork, this is her food. And she's like, yeah. And I said, Dee Dee, if you've got something to say it to my face. Like, you know, and it got me to the point where she was just acting so like oblivious and flippant, and she was just, it was getting irritating because it's like, we've been told from, me and Joe had been told from several people, you're talking about us, so we're asking you. Me and Joe, by the way, we didn't ask her together. we asked her in the same situation, but I asked Dee Dee on my own, and Jo asked Dee Dee on her own. So I said, if you've got anything to say to me, Dee Dee, you need to say it to my face, or it's going to be a problem. Like, stop talking about me behind my back. She's like, I ain't got nothing to say, I ain't got nothing to say. And that was the first time, like I said, I was very quiet back then, totally different to how I am now. So me, in that sense, growing balls and confronting her about what she had to say about me, I was like this, I was shaking at one point. So it switches, and so after I've like talked to her, it switches over to Jo. Jo goes, well, you've been saying X, Y, and Z about me, say it to my face. And Dee Dee, like this again with the fart, she's like, I haven't got anything to say. I don't want any problems, I'm sorry. And me and Jo weren't buying it. So Jo started getting pissed off. And you could see in Jo's face, like Jo went bright red. And Jo literally stood up and she said, I gotta walk away from him. I've got to walk away from you for a minute. And Jo walked away from the table. She came back and I'm like, yo, that's exactly how I feel. And I felt at that moment. Like, just Dee Dee was the shit talking and causing problems, and then when we'd confront her, she'd deny it, but it was like we was getting the information from so many different people. It's like when so many different people are telling you the same thing, it's like, okay, like they knew Dee Dee more than I did. Like I was still getting to know Dee Dee from a distance. I made that very clear. I told Dee Dee, like, I don't consider you that kind of friend. Like we're just getting to know each other. Your vibe was just off. And like any other friendship group after that, we had our own little like tiny arguments. It was not like big kind of fallout, nothing like that. We got on. Sorry, I'm just reading my notes. So Dee Dee, this is what I'm saying. Dee Dee being a fake bitch. Dee Dee said, came in one day and said I was in the what you call the nurture room. And Dee Dee came in and she said to me, oh my God, you won't believe what happened yesterday. I'm so fucking fuming. And I said, what? And she said, Alice, I forgot if she said kebab, she might not have, but let's just say kebab, for example. Not for example, but like, I don't know if kebab was there or not, because she told, like, I didn't know about this situation, like Dee Dee told me, that's how I knew about this situation to begin with. But it was Alice's sister, kebab, but we'll put a question mark on that, and Jo. And they were out one day near Int's bar, you know, where like the KFC is and things like that. And she said that they were out and they were like I forgot if she said if they were getting something to eat or they were going somewhere. And Dee Dee said to me, Alice, I was walking away, and next thing you know, Alice's sister hops on me from the back. Apparently, Alice's sister had hopped on her and like was beating the shit out of her. And apparently, she told me that Jo tried to stop it, but Jo was being held back by two people, like two lads, I think it was. So Jo couldn't really do much because she's being held back by two lads. She said, oh, I'm so fucking fuming. She was like, she's like, Alice had the opportunity to defend me. She's supposed to be my friend. Why she letting her sister attack me? I'm so fucking sick of this. Like, everybody's fake and blah, 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 blah. And she was like, oh, fuck Jo because Jo didn't have my back. Fuck Alice because she didn't have my back. Fuck Bob, she didn't have my back. And just talking a lot of wild shit. Like, that's how I knew about things that were going on in Alice's home life. Now, I never told Alice about this until a couple of weeks back when I brung this all up, because I'm responsible for bringing all this back up, but I'm not responsible for how it started. So we was talking and Alice asked me, what did Dee Dee tell me? Bear in mind, Alice asked me this a couple of weeks back, and I still remember this because, like I said, this was a traumatic event for me, so I can remember all of this shit like it was yesterday. She was like, what did Dee Dee say? I said, basically, Dee Dee told me such and such and such and such and such about your home life. And basically, Alice is the kind of person where, yeah, we were friends, but Alice was not like, she's not about to open up to you. She's not like that. She's very private and to herself. She don't talk about things going on in her personal life, especially those kinds of things. But I wanted to make it clear to Alice that the only reason I knew about that situation, meaning what was going on at home, allegedly, and the fight, was because Dee Dee told me. I wouldn't have known if Dee Dee hadn't have told me these things. That was my whole point. So, she was like, oh, Alice told me, she was like, oh, that doesn't surprise me. Dee Dee's never been a real friend. And I'm like, I'm just, if anything, now I'm more pissed off at the fact I didn't see, really, what everybody else saw in Dee Dee. Like, I knew that there was something just not right about Dee Dee. Like, my gut was like, you can't really trust this bitch. But, like, I was kind of blind to it for a while. Like, I was just like, oh, maybe it's just me in my own mind. Because me and Dee Dee did have moments where we got on. Like I said, I would never say friends because I told that bitch straight. Like, I don't, you're not my kind of chick. I'm not feeling you like that. Like, you're very two-faced. Like, there's just something about you that tells me, like, you need to keep away from me. So, Dee Dee was also telling me a bunch of other stuff. Like, Dee Dee was filling me up with basically gossip that I didn't want to know about. And I told Dee Dee this at one point. I said, Dee Dee, I don't want to keep hearing about what you know about your so-called friends, because if you're a friend, you wouldn't be sitting here telling me you considered me a friend, but I didn't consider you a friend type shit. So you can't sit there and tell me about what's going on with your so-called best friend, because Alice was Dee Dee's best friend apparently. But if you're such good friends, why are you telling me what's going on in her life if you're such good friends? So I told Dee Dee, I said, I don't want to hear about this. I don't want you to keep coming to me and telling me about what's going on in other people's lives. Like, that's none of my business. That's not my concern. Like, you just need to stop talking about people behind the back. I said this to her too. I said, because the last time you spoke about people behind the back, you spoke about me and you spoke about Joe. And then you denied it. So she, at that table, I forgot to mention, she started crying because she got that scared. Because Joe got that mad, she thought that Joe was going to literally kick her ass in the canteen. Don't talk shit about people. So it was like Dee Dee was just instigating and just talking shit. And I'm like, why do I know so much about these people that's bad? But you're not telling me the good. These are supposed to be your friends, but you steady slagging them off behind the back. That doesn't make any sense. That's not friend. Just Dee Dee was really instigative, very manipulative, and one of those people that like would talk that shit but couldn't ever really say it to your face or didn't want to say it to your face. Just Dee Dee was that kind of person. Like, she gonna talk about you behind your back. She's never gonna talk about you to your face. She's just gonna talk about you behind your back. So, I was in Bury with my foster carers, my second set of foster carers, and this was like a couple of weeks after the whole Dee Dee situation. Basically, like I said, my double depression kicked in, and obviously my life at home with my foster carers at the time wasn't good. Really wasn't good. I didn't get on with my foster dad. I think I've said this before. I threw a lamp at him because he wouldn't get out of my room. So I literally picked up a whole lamp and threw it at him. I said to him that day, I said, can you get out of my room? Like, you're saying this is my room. I'm asking you to leave. Like, you're invading my space. And he's like, I'm not getting out your room. This is my house. And I just remember, like, he was stood at my door and I was looking at him, and I just remember turning around, grabbing the lamp and just throwing the lamp, like, get the fuck out of my room. But my second set of foster carers, they didn't treat me like a human being. For example, I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget this day as long as I live. I woke up, come downstairs, my foster dad was there, my foster mum was there, my foster brother was there, and my foster brother at the time was also a child that they'd fostered. So they're all sat down, and my foster dad's foster mum and dad's real daughter, she was a lot older. She came over with her children, things, and a fella. And I shit you not, we're all sat in the living room, right? It's my foster dad, foster brother. Wait, no. It's my foster mum, foster brother, me, foster mum. Okay? Foster dad, foster brother, me, foster mum. We're all sat on seats. So, my foster sister, who's like the biological daughter, comes in. She's like, hey, hi, everybody. Like, she's always been big energy, high energy, fun, bubbly. How you all doing? Like, hi, how you all doing? And she starts going down the line, giving everybody a hug and a hi and how are you? So my foster dad, how are you, Dad? She was like, giving him a big hug. She got to my foster brother, how are you doing? She stopped at me, didn't even look at me, didn't even smile at me, and skipped straight past me and was like, see, and my foster mum sat right next to me, and she's like, oh, come here, foster mum, like, give her a big hug, and how you doing? And I'm like, okay, I haven't done a thing wrong. This makes me feel awkward. But it was things like that. Like my foster carers, they pretty much, second set of them, they pretty much alienated me. I'm not even joking. They literally treated me like I wasn't there. Literally what? I remember coming home from school one day and my foster dad saying, we want you to go to bed earlier. And I said, I go to bed at 8 o'clock every night. Like, that was our curfew. We go to bed at 8 o'clock every night so my foster mum and foster dad could have some time together. Because my foster mum, she is a carer. So she was out of the house quite a lot. So the only time they really got was when she wasn't working and he wasn't at band practice, and they got that time together. So I'm like, cool, I'll go to bed at 8. That's cool. And I come in from school, I got picked up, and then my foster brother came in straight after me, and we was both stood at the bottom of the stairs, and my foster dad was stood at the entrance to the living room door, and he's like, we want you to go to bed earlier. Not my foster brother, but just me. We want you to go to bed earlier. I said, why? I said, I go to bed at 8 o'clock anyway. Like, that's early as hell. Why do I need to go to bed earlier? And he's like, oh, we just want a bit more time together. So as a joke, I said, I'm going to go to bed now. Which at the time it was 4 o'clock. So I was being sarcastic, trying to make a joke. And he fucking, if you've ever been in foster care, you know your carers have those diaries that they fill out on the daily. Literally, that's another story. But when I found that diary, like, it was just, and I read about that situation, about the bedtime situation. They twisted that so bad. Like, the only thing I said it sarcastically. I was laughing when I said it, but they made it seem like something it wasn't. Like I said, that if you want me to do a story time on that, I will. But I ended up being hospitalised for a suicide attempt. What happened was I threw myself out of my bedroom window. I was in a very, 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 very depressed state of mind. And I remember opening my window up, and I was on the phone to Samaritans. I put the phone down because I didn't want to talk. And I remember I sat on the ledge. I had my legs hanging out the window. I was sat on the ledge, like I was sat in the window frame with the window open. And I don't know what come over me. I just pushed myself forward like that. And I shit you not, my head smacked straight against the floor. Like, I hit the floor like that. How I didn't end up with a concussion, how I didn't end up with a bust head, I don't know. But my head went smack bang on the floor. And I just remember lying there, like, thinking, oh my God, why didn't it work? Like, I've just thrown myself out of my window with some force, smacked my head. My head was the first thing to hit the floor, concrete floor. I'm like, why am I still here? So I'd like wait a couple of minutes, see if anybody's going to come out, because one thing that happened in foster care was, with my second set of carers, I used to talk to Samaritans a lot because I couldn't talk to them. They alienated me that much. They literally treated me like I wasn't there. And I'll get into that if you guys want me to do a story time on that. But basically, I waited outside to see if anybody would come, and nobody came. And a couple of nights before, my foster mum, like, her bedroom, like my foster mum and dad's bedroom was right directly next to mine. And I was on the phone to Samaritans one night. I was like crying my eyes out. I was like, I just need somebody to talk to. I'm being made to feel alienated. I feel like I walk into a room and people don't even see me. Like they weren't even, there was no hi, good morning, anything. They wouldn't talk to me, anything like that. I was totally being treated as though I wasn't there. And she shouts through the wall, like, can you keep the fucking noise down? I'm trying to sleep. Get off the phone. And I told my Samaritans person, I said, she's literally just told me to shut up and get off the phone. You know? So the fact that nobody came to help me, I literally had to climb up the fucking pipe. You know the pipes that are at the side? I had to climb up the fucking pipe to get back to my window. So a couple of nights after that, without going into too much detail, I had a really severe self-harm episode. When I tell you I cut myself from head to toe, literally, my foster mum said when she came into my room, she said, your whole body was red. She was like, your whole entire body was red from head to toe. And she was like, I remember her saying, she was like, I thought you'd punctured an artery or something, or you'd punctured the vein in the wrong place. She was like really worried. And she sat me down and she got a bottle of TCP and it was cleaning me up, and I was in a very just incredibly depressed state of mind. And a couple of days after that, I ended up getting sectioned against my will. I was literally forced to go. Forced to go. In the past, when I've been sectioned, they've had the fucking, that white wheelchair. They've literally had that out and strapped me to that. Like, literally, because they were like, if you don't, you can't stand up when you're a mentally ill patient and you're being sectioned, you're not allowed to stand up and walk yourself into the hospital. You've got to sit in this chair, or if in like a normal black wheelchair. If not, if you refuse to, they will pull out a white chair with straps on at the hands and at the feet. And they literally forced me into that. And they literally winged me off into the hospital. And when I got into the hospital, my foster dad was there. And I explained to him what was going on. He was pretty much laughing at the situation. Like, you're meant to be a foster carer, but you're laughing at a foster child that's got serious mental health issues, they're being sectioned, and you want to laugh. That speaks volumes about you, not me. You know what I mean? And I said to the nurse, I want him out of this room. I do not want him in this room. And the nurse said, you're 16, because I was 16 at the time. She was like, you're 16, he's not going anywhere. If he wants to be here parentally, because they have parental responsibility, they were like, parentally, he can be here if he wants to be here. And I'm like, but I don't want him here though. Why do I want somebody around me that is laughing? And he was laughing at my situation. And I told the nurse, I said, I don't want him here. Like, you're asking me, what do I need to feel better? What can you do to make me feel better? I'm saying, get that man out of this ward before I kick off. And she was like, oh, if you kick off, we'll have you pinned down and we will sedate you. I said, I do not care. I do not want that man anywhere around me. And he ended up leaving. And they came back later. And my foster sister had the nerve to come in, and she sat down on the bed and she was like, I'm not dealing with you treating my father like this. I was like, hold up. Your father and your mother treat me like I'm not even there. You know what I mean? We had an incident, just to give you guys a quick little story time. My foster dad and I had an incident where I'd gone and spoken to school members, like school teachers, about what was going on at home with them, because I was like, this alienation is really, like, when somebody alienates you, not just somebody, but it's like a whole family. When a whole family alienate you, and you're forced to live in that situation. It is the weirdest feeling ever. I felt so out of place. I literally felt like a ghost, because it was like I'd walk into a room, nobody would say hi, nobody would acknowledge me, I wouldn't even get a look at anybody, nobody would even say anything to me at all. It was literally like being a ghost. So I told school, and I told the school about the diaries that I'd found that I mentioned prior that foster carers have to fill out on the daily. And I mentioned it, and I said to her, nothing in these diaries is true. It is either extremely exaggerated or it is just made up lies. And I'm like, I am not being painted this way. I refuse to be. Especially off people that were treating me like I wasn't there. I spent most of my time in my room because they didn't want me to come downstairs. So, you know what I mean? But they've got such bad things to say about me. How do you have such bad things to say about me? And you made me go in my room most of the time. Like, it doesn't, you weren't around me a lot. So I was confused. I was just confused. And school brought him in, and we had a little meeting. And I remember on the car ride home, we was riding from Rosebridge to Haywood in Bury, which is about an hour and a half drive. You've got to go like over the motorway, and when it's like 3-4 o'clock, it's like, you know, everybody's come home from school and work and things like that. So the traffic was always bad. It used to take us like an hour and a half to get home. And it's like dead silent in the car, like dead silent. And I just remember he had his sunglasses on and he was driving. It was just me and him in the car. And he looks at me through the rear view mirror, and he goes, so what the fuck was that about? And like I said, I was very scared back then. So I was like, I started to shake. I started to sweat. My anxiety was kicking in. I felt like I was going to faint or be sick. Like, I got super nervous. And I said, I just told school about how I'm feeling. And he was like, fuck school and fuck you and fuck how you're feeling. He was like, wait till we get home and we'll have a fucking talk. So like, I used to be terrified of people in general back then. So I just sat there in the car and I was just like, I didn't even want to move, didn't want to breathe, didn't want to do nothing. And we're arguing on the whole way home, like, not arguing, I was talking to him and he was literally screaming at me. So, because like I said, I was very scared back then, and I was very scared to talk to people. Like, I didn't have the right social skills. So it was like I just went into my shell. And I had a black coffee in, like a flask. So this black coffee was scalding hot, by the way. We got out the car and I'm walking to go into the house. Now, to get into my second set of carers' house, you had to walk up these steps. It was like up this hill, and like the door was like right at the top. So I start walking up the door, not up the door, up the steps, and my foster dad is behind me. And I have this open flask of scalding hot black coffee, by the way. And he's like walking behind me. I get 2-3 steps up, there's like 20 steps, and all of a sudden I hear, and it was so clear. Like, we just spent that whole time arguing, and I literally remember stopping, and I thought to myself, did this motherfucker just spit at me? Because it didn't sound like he turned away and spat at me. It sounded like he spat at me, like my head was, like, I was here and he's behind me. It didn't sound like he turned the other way to spit. It sounded like he just went. So I stopped, and I remember holding my coffee. I looked at my coffee and I thought to myself, did this motherfucker just spit at me? And I'm so happy I stopped myself from doing that, because that would have been stupid as hell to do. Like, I'm not about to ruin my life for some miserable old fuck. So I'm glad I didn't throw that scalding hot coffee in your face, but don't ever spit at me, like. And if you're going to spit at me, at least be man enough to do it to my face. So I get in the house, he's still outside. I sit down and I'm visibly upset, and my foster mum sat down on the computer and she says, what's the matter? And I just shook my head. I said, I don't want to talk about it. And I sat there, like I said, I was very quiet and shy, and I was scared to stand up for myself back then. And he comes in like this, like, I'm the big I am, and we're arguing. arguing. Well, no, I'm not arguing. He's arguing. I'm just sitting there, and I remember I was sat like this on the table, and I was just listening to him. I was getting so fed up of it all, and he comes over to me. I think I've told this story before. And I had an empty cup on the table, and he's going to like make everybody a brew, and like pretend this is like my cup, and he goes boom and grabs it. But the way he did it was, it looked like he was going to punch me. That's what it looked like. It looked like he was going to punch me, but grabbed the cup instead, if that makes sense. So I flinched because I like I said, I used to be terrified of people. It didn't matter who you were, I just used to be scared of people in general. Like, that's how bad my anxiety was. And still is to this day. Like, I'm not scared of people, I'm just like very anxious at times. But it was like, I felt like he was going to hit me, and we started getting into this big argument. And I said, and that's when I decided I had enough. I said, "You're an old man picking on somebody." I wasn't even 16 at the time. Tell a lie, I wasn't even 16. I'm like, "You're how old? Like 53 was at the time, 54." I'm like, "You're doing all of this to try and intimidate me for what? Because what you wrote about me in those diaries was totally false and exaggerated? Or are you mad at me because I've told the school about exactly what's going on at home and how I'm isolated, how I'm alienated? I'm told to go to bed at ridiculous times, just so you and your wife can have some alone time. That's not how foster caring works. If you're a foster carer, the child that you're caring for is supposed to be your priority, not so you and your wife can sit down, get fat together and watch TV. And also I want to talk about, they were a very racist family. My foster dad in particular would throw the N-word around a lot, make jokes about people from places like India and Pakistan, and he would make fun of them. He made fun of me because my eyes are slightly slanted. Made fun of me. My foster mum, she dropped the N-word a few times. My foster brother would drop the N-word. And I used to look at these people, I used to be like, you're all fucking disgusting. Like, I've not got a racist bone in my body, not a racist cell in my body. I'm like, you would never catch me saying shit like that. Like, and I used to be disgusted. And I'm like, you're mad at the fact that I've told the school everything that's going on. That's what you're mad at. But I ended up being sectioned shortly after that. And shortly after, I was kicked out of that placement. I wasn't actually kicked out, actually. I chose to leave. They'd already given me the boot. That's why I said kicked out. But how that went down was, I was in the car with my social worker at the time. And she says, I'm telling her about what's going on. I'm like, I remember telling her I don't want to be in this placement anymore. I want out. And she got me a packet of chocolate digestives at the time, so I was eating a packet of chocolate digestives, and she's driving the car on the motorway, and she goes, well, I've got some news for you. And I look at her and I said, I already know what it is. And I don't know how I knew that, because I hadn't been told that, I hadn't seen anything. I just knew. And she was like, what do you think the news is? I said, they're kicking me out. And she said, yeah. And I said, thank you. And we went home and we had a meeting. And I was crying in the meeting because obviously it's sad. Like, when I first met the second set of foster carers, I thought they were really nice people. And I thought that they were really down to earth. I thought they had my best interests at heart. I thought they had my back. I thought they wanted what was best for me, but they didn't. Like, they weren't even giving me pocket money. For example, if you're a child in foster care, you're supposed to get a certain amount of pocket money every week. They were keeping it for themselves. Instead of foster caring, my second set of foster carers went on a holiday all around India, and that was for fucking ages. And then they went to India, they went to Ghana, they went somewhere else, and it was like I was with them for about 8 months, and I bullshit you not, for about 3 months of that 8 months, they were away on holiday. So that's where the money was going that they were getting, clearly. It's like, you can go and spend money on all your holidays, but you can't help me out. Like, that's my money that you're spending. So, whatever. So I told I told my social worker, I said, thank you. And we was in this meeting, and I just stopped talking after a while, and she was like, my social worker said, "Is there anything you want to say?" I said, "No." I said, "Can I go now?" And she was like, really taken aback, because she said to me later on, she was like, "I thought you liked them." I'm like, "Yeah, but they were people, it was smoke and mirrors, it wasn't what it seemed. Like, they seemed nice at first, and then I got to know them properly, and yeah, it just didn't work out." And I remember walking out and going to my social worker's car at the time, and I put my hands on the roof like this, and I put my head down, and I remember looking up at the sky, and I remember it was a boiling hot day, and I just remember thinking, yeah, it's sad because I'm leaving these people. Like, at that time I was like, I don't want to keep getting connected to people and then finding out they're not who they say they are, or they're actually horrible people that are pretending to be nice people. And it's like, it was just difficult. But I remember thinking, it's sad that I'm leaving, but I'm over the moon that I'm leaving, because at least I can go somewhere where people will treat me like I'm a human being, like they acknowledge me, like I'm actually there. Um, so I was happy. And later on, before I end this video, because I realise I've been talking for so long, editing me, I feel bad for you, but yeah, anyway. So I remember saying to my social worker, I told her everything that was going on. I was going, she's taking me from Bury all the way to a place called The View. The View is basically a place where you can go for like respite if you're in like foster care and stuff. So I was being taken there because I'd been kicked out of my foster placement in Bury, and they had nowhere else to put me, so I had to go into The View. With The View, you're only allowed to stay for, I think it's 3 days, and I had to stay for 5 days, maybe 6, and I got told on the very last day before I left to go to my new placement up in Birkenhead, which, by the way, if anybody's watching from that residential home, I fucking love you and I miss you, and thank you, because it's because of y'all I'm a much better person. Like, I still take lessons and advice that y'all give me, and I still apply that to my everyday life. And my best friend in this whole world is actually, I met her because she was actually at one time a staff member there at that residential home. She's now one of my absolute best friends. I also have another best friend that is still a staff member there. I can't say her name, but what can I say? Like Blondie. Like, if I say Blondie, like, you'll know who I'm on about. I miss you so much. I don't want to say your name, so because I haven't asked you if you want to be in this video, but like, I miss y'all so much, and like, thank you so much. Like, going to that placement, the residential home, was amazing for me. I learned a lot about myself. My confidence went from all the way down there to all the way up here. So them people, I love them dearly. I just love them dearly. And I have major respect for them. But I remember my social worker was telling me at that time, like on the way driving up, she was like, "We've listened to what you said, we've considered it, we've investigated it," which was found out to be true, by the way. Everything I've just told you about my foster carers, the second set of foster carers, was found to be true, i.e. the stealing of money from me, the racial comments that were almost on a daily basis, the insults, the fact that he almost hit me one time, me throwing the lamp. I was at my wit's end with it, and she was like, "We've listened, we've investigated, we've found what you've said to be true, and we've found what they have said to be false, and have been lies, and been trying to cover up things." So she told me, she said, they've actually been completely and utterly banished from the Wigan foster carers.